Well, if you're keeping score at home, dear listeners to the Yacht Rock Podcast out of the Main, you know that my co-host John here is keeping score. He's proud of the fact that we've interviewed more drummers than bass players.
So far.
Today we are going to inch closer on the bass player tally.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, drummers love bass players, so there's really, it's a friendly rivalry.
That's right. They're the chocolate, the peanut butter sitting in the back, right? So, well, without further ado, let's bring on said bass player. We are really thrilled to have, be able to welcome to the show Lance Hoppen, longtime bass player for the bands Orleans and current frontman. Lance, welcome to the show.
Hi guys, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I have that right? You're sort of fronting the band on this tour that we're going to talk about.
That would be overstating it. In terms of being a long time, yeah, I'm the last of the original four. So I've been here since I was 18 years old at 1972, and in 72. So I've seen it all. And we've had probably over a dozen different versions of the band. At all times, 2 or 3 of those original 4 continuing, whether it was Larry and me, or John and Larry, or John and me, or Larry, me, and Wells, like different time periods, different formations. But only until recently, John Hall retired from the road officially in March. So that leaves me last man standing of the original. But again, along the way, we've gathered to us many, and it would be, and the workload is spread out. Yeah, I sing lead on a bunch of stuff, but so does Fly Amaro, so does my brother Lane, so does our new guy Tom Lane. So it's really a band and a group effort.
Awesome. Well, we should, before I forget to, I would be remiss if we don't thank Kim Riley from Seaside Music Management, who facilitated this interview, because you have, amongst a number of other shows, you have a show coming up that our friends in the Miami area will find relevant, and certainly our friends at Yacht Rock Miami. And that's a show you have coming up in Hallandale Beach at the Gulfstream Park. So tell us a little about, I'm looking at this, what I would call a tour roster of all the bands that you get to play with this summer and into the fall, and it's a who's who of yacht rock and West Coast AOR.
We often do 3-act bills with Pure Prairie League and Firefall. It used to be Pure Prairie League and Poco, or Firefall and Poco, that kind of combination. Done a lot of shows with Ambrosia, but these particular shows coming up are Firefall, Pure Prairie League. The one in Hallandale Beach is a solo, just us. And then later in the year, we have a couple where we will be backing Walter Regan, John Ford Coley, Peter Beckett from Player, inside our show, much like the Yacht Rock Review does. We have that experience. If you see this poster behind me, Sail Rock Tour, that was, back in 2013, a similar thing to Yacht Rock Review, where we were the house band and there were 7 other acts that we backed on that, from Christopher Cross on down. So we often do that. And I really like those shows. I mean, I like doing our own shows, but I really enjoy probably more doing these mix-up things where we bring somebody on and do 2, 3, 4 of their hits and move on to the next guy, keeps it interesting.
So that show that you're talking about, that's October 15th, St. Louis, Missouri. So as you said, Peter Beckett, Walter Egan, John Ford Coley. It says also plus Firefall and the Babies. Is that
That's
correct?
Right. So they're coming as full bands.
Okay. Will this be like a festival kind of thing? How is it being billed? So it must be a pretty long show, or is it like multiple stages or something?
Probably. Well, I'm going to guess the Firefall and the Babies will have 45 minutes each. We'll probably have an hour and a quarter, and inside that hour and a quarter, plug in those other 3 singers, artists inside our show. So you're looking at a 2.5 hour show of mostly 70s classic rock stuff.
That seems like so much fun. We had Burley Drummond from Ambrosia on just a few weeks ago. They had a show also at Gulfstream Park, and they were backing up. That night, they were inviting Peter Beckett, right, John?
Right,
Up on
Beckett,
stage.
yep.
And we talked about how there's like this community of what we would call yacht rockers, because we're looking back and there's been this term applied to it. What is it like collaborating? You said it's more fun or it's different. How is it? Is this like one big happy family where all you guys are kind of interchanging in roles and playing together? It's got to be a blast.
Mostly happy family, sometimes not.
Uh-oh.
Oh, Lance is here to spill the tea.
No, that's okay. I'll reference this poster, this Sailing Rock 2013 tour, which kept us on the map post my brother's death in 2012. So that show, again, we were the house band. Our quintet, John Hall was in the band, myself. And Christopher Cross was the headliner. Then us was Firefall player Robbie Dupree, John Ford Coley, Al Stewart, Peter Beckett. Yeah, so everybody came out and did their 2, 3. They probably did 3 songs anyway, and then we did 5. Christopher did 5. So it was a ton of work for Orleans, and specifically myself being the music director.
Yeah.
And our drummer, Charlie Morgan, because every day we would sound check every act, every day. And we didn't, for a long time, have a designated monitor guy or anything. We started from scratch every day. So we worked all day and then all night, Charlie and me. And then the other guys in Orleans joined in as needed. Firefall came as a trio, right? So we only need 2 guys, and so on and so forth. So a lot of work, but a lot, like you say, camaraderie, taking that entourage around. That summer, I think we did 24 shows or something. Wow. And it was just 2 hours of solid hits, and the audiences loved it. So
nothing but the hits.
Nice. I can't believe I can't get in a Wayback Machine and go see that.
Well, I'm going to take you in the Wayback Machine right now because I have a question. Let's go back a little bit to the recording days. And one of the questions that I didn't have written down, but you sort of struck, was we recently did an episode where we focused on backup vocals and harmonies and groups that did a lot of harmonization, as well as some of the stars of freelance backup artists. So you guys were well known for your harmonies, and that was a signature part of the sound. Where would you have been in those harmonies? What role did you play? Were you the low guy, high guy, kind of, now that you're singing more lead and stuff now in front of the band, but where did you sit in that back in the day?
All the highest falsetto stuff, that was me. All the high stuff like that.
So bringing the bottom and singing the top.
Yeah, it's often the case with bass players.
Is it? Okay.
And so Larry was the real tenor. He could hit it in his prime. I've heard him hit D's and even E's full voice, which is stupidly high for most humans. And but all of our ranges changed over the years, and we lost a little top end or whatever.
Sure.
So my falsetto was even higher than that back in the day, and so that was part of the sound. But we often interchanged from song to song, whatever sounded better. And even when we were pretty new and didn't know better, we would change parts within a song, like who's singing what. It's like, why? I don't know.
As long as it sounds good.
Oh yeah, right. We got a little more regimented as we went, but you'll hear me on top often, or just under Larry in full voice, and then John under me. That was a fairly common stack.
Who's laying that basso part in the acapella and Still the One? Who's that?
Still the One. That's an interesting story. Well, John sings bass, and Wells sang bass. Wells, our drummer, a bit. And so Wells did the bass part, but John wasn't satisfied with it on certain notes. So in the old school manner of punching into tape.
No way.
I mean, it was really like word to word, like Wells and John and then.
Oh my God.
So it's like a Frankenstein of those two, huh? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Not easy to edit the way it is now with the digital files, but that's a combination of Wells and John.
Wow. Well,
that's a fun fact. I can't wait to tell somebody that.
I know. Well, they'll have to listen first, but
yeah.
I know you, Tom, you're the bass player, but I have a question. I'd kind of written down some things. A while back, we did kind of a micro analysis, a quick analysis of Dance With Me for reasons, that have to do with yacht rock nerdness. But one of the things to me that really set that song apart was the bass part. And I had a couple of questions about that, particularly it starts sort of relatively simply, but then we get into like that second verse, you start arpeggiating up the chords. Kind of during the solo, it's almost like a walking feel. It's like a root and fifth, but it kind of takes on a walking bass feel. Third verse comes, the arpeggiations are even more elaborate. So I guess my question is, to the best that you can, remember, what was the thought process of how you built that whole part? Because it's so planned out and just, it's an orchestral part in and of itself.
All right, so that's so here's the skinny on that whole thing. That song was recorded on 2 different albums. It was recorded twice. It was recorded on our second album for ABC, as was Let There Be Music on that album also, but ABC hated that record. They didn't hear any hits. It was self-produced. It was maybe indulgent. I don't know. Those were good songs, maybe not recorded all that well. So they passed and they never put that album out till much, much later. When we got heard by Chuck Plotkin at Asylum, he not only wanted to sign the band, he secured the re-recording rights for those 2 songs. So Let There Be Music and Dance With Me were recut. Now, originally, when we did Dance With Me, it had started as just a guitar lick that John had, that Larry heard, that says, you really need to finish that one. And then John's ex-wife and writing partner, Johanna, wrote the lyrics. And we started doing it live and did our version. It was very different than any other thing we were doing. We were doing funky R&B, rock, club band, that kind of thing. So it was an anomaly. So when it came to the bass part, it was, the obvious was the 1/5, simple. And I took a shot at it, and it wasn't working. And Wells took a shot at it too, and John took a shot. Everybody took a shot at it. But when Larry took up, he got to the thing, and he went, doo, doo. It was like, okay, game over. There you go. Because Larry was, before I was there, he played most of the bass in the band, and in other bands prior, he was bass player before he became guitar player or keyboard player. So he's very proficient bass player. So having done it on the first record, when we went to cut the Let There Be Music album and Dance With Me as the one that became a hit, even though I've played 99% of all bass tracks on Orleans, it was like a no contest. I just handed him the bass and said, this is your deal, you do it. And in fact, on that record, Larry played not only bass and sang the lead part, he played the Rode, the piano, and he played the melodica solo.
Mm-hmm.
He's all over that record and all over all of our records. So he's most of that record. I mean, John played guitar and Will's overdubbed some drums, and we put some vocals on it, and that's about it.
Wow. I've heard that song a million times, and I listened to it today specifically for the bass line. And what I realized is, because the bass line is what it is, it pretty much drives the rhythm section of that whole song. And go back and listen to how quietly back the drums are mixed in that tune.
Right.
They're just there to keep time.
It's a counter melody. It's more than just a bass part, and it's mixed plenty hot.
Yeah.
Because of that. And in fact, I think this, if I remember correctly, and I think I do, the track was cut without a click, because we weren't using them back then. And it was just John's guitar and Larry on piano. That was the original band
So the bass is an overdub.
And then the drums were like, okay, what are they supposed to be? And the kick drum was first, and then the top drum,
Oh, wow.
It's like put together that way, but in the end, it sounds organic,
Wow. Another fun fact.
Yeah. It was Chuck Plotkin was really good at that, at sculpting things and figuring on as we went. So that was put together a piece at a time.
So when Wells then later on moved off of drums to keys and stuff, and then Jerry Marotta came in, how did that, not to suggest one is necessarily better or whatever than the other, but how different was it for you? Was the feel something you had to adjust to over time?
Right. So, 5 or 4 young men, everybody vying for whatever, me being the silent new kid trying to just hang on for dear life. There was a lot of turmoil all the time, like, my songs, my this, my that, as the stakes got higher. And Wells's main complaint was, I want to play keyboards and I want to do, I just don't want to be just the drummer. He's fantastic. He was a fabulous, unique, stunning drummer, but he was a really good keyboard player too. And he wrote his songs and he wanted to play them on keyboard. And so his complaint was that. So that's when we searched for another drummer. And Jerry Marotta, being just 20, I think, having not had that was his first big gig.
Wow.
He's been on to have a tremendous career, but he was younger than me when he came in. And so then we had double drums on some stuff. We had drums and percussion on some stuff, or Jerry would play drums and Wells would play keys. And then we'd have the two guitars. So there was a lot of orchestration availability with that group that way. And standing between the two drummers as the bass player, pretty awesome. Pretty awesome.
So unlike, I was going to say, unlike me, you probably have hearing deficiencies in both ears then.
Yeah. Right.
I can still hear pretty much, but I like closed captions on my TV.
I bet.
And their styles were so different.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Wells was very flamboyant and exciting. Jerry was, as simple as, and lay it down as he didn't want to, don't give me too many fills,
Right.
So together they were awesome.
Yeah. Cool. Well, hopefully I'm going to get another fun fact out of you, Lance, because I want to ask your version of events that we heard as described by Bill Schnee months and months ago. And we had him on the show, and he told us about a demo tape that he received in the mail, and he threw it on the box to go, into the box, he thought, to go listen to later.
Yeah.
Right. And the box was full, and it ricocheted off the top and fell behind the box. And it wasn't until months later, he's like, oh my God, there's another tape back here. What's this? Puts it in and says, I got to record this song. Do you know what song this was? Love Takes Time.
Yeah, I'm going to guess it was that because, and well, that explains something.
Yeah, by the time he had called or whatever, you guys had already cut it. You already had a producer and you were all like ready to go.
Right. So the first time John left the band was in 77, because again, 5 bulls in a china shop, and it just kind of blew up, and he just said, I got other things I want to do. So he went off, and then there was chaos, and then a reformation of the band, and demos. And the last song to be added to that demo tape was a living room demo recording of Love Takes Time that Larry had done. And that was the deal clincher. We were shopping. We wanted to be with Epic, frankly, and they were very interested, but there was a new label, Infinity, an MCA subsidiary, and they had this big checkbook. So our lawyer just said, just give them a number, it's too big, and they'll go, and they said yes. So we went with Infinity, and for better or worse, we had Love Takes Time as a hit, and shortly after that, the label folded. It was a bad time for the industry. Cassette tape was gutting sales. The oil crisis. I mean, vinyl was in short supply. It was not good. So we got caught up in that, and then into the 80s, which were not kind to us, really, to be honest.
Well, Bill told us, John, if I recall correctly, that he considers that the one that got away from his perspective.
He does.
Well, it would have been nice to have Bill produce, because, again, we went into the studio with no producer. We went thinking we had a clue, and we went to the record plant in New York. Roy Sakala, the owner, who produced John Lennon and whoever, everybody. Roy saw what was going on, and he says, "Guys, let me help you out here." So he became the producer, in fact, and we spent every dollar, and then some to make that record.
Who ended up singing lead on that? I don't have the credit in front of me.
Love Takes Time?
Yeah.
That was Larry's song. He wrote that with his ex-wife, former wife at the time.
All right, and he's on the lead vocal.
Yeah, absolutely. And in his absence, we had to divvy up that workload. Who can sing Still the One? Who can do?
Yeah.
So Love Takes Time fell to me, and I was like, oh my God, this is really, really hard. I don't have his range, and it's just, even in his range, it's a bear, right? So I wrestled it to the ground. We figured these things out. When he passed in 2012, all I really wanted to do was finish the year, and that was 40 years. And I said, that's enough. And then somebody stepped up with this tour I've been mentioning for the 2013, and that rejuvenated things. So we had to figure out how to carry on and with integrity. And we learned who could do what. And I think we've done a good job in the last 10 years.
You've done a few recordings recently. I mean, we've got the Nashville sessions. We've got the work at home stuff. That pandemic recordings, and then of course the Christmas album. So you've been busy.
Yeah. We haven't. We had to learn new skills. Pandemic made everybody learn new stuff, right? So every one of us learned home recording, audio, video, and then how to put it all together. And that Christmas album was a 6-month project that I was at the center of with my engineer friend, and it's very tedious. It's like I'm going to sing all the parts. I got to sing all the parts, and then like demo them, and then I'm going to send it out, and you replace that one, and you replace that one. You send it, So everything takes longer, and especially if you don't have it right the first time, you have to do it again. And as opposed to being in the same room and knocking stuff out, ideas and then performances. But yeah, we got it done.
Would you guys back in the day have sung 3 around a mic kind of situation, or each guy would have his turn?
Yeah, always back in the day it was 3-4 guys around the mic.
Nice.
And you have to then each get it right. Like you have to in tune, the right lyric, the same phrasing, and blah, 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 everything. And then you have to do it again. You have to double it, right?
That was the norm.
So that was
didn't
back
go
in
any
the
other
day.
way. Yeah.
Right. These days it's all, each to his own mic. We'll fix it, get close and we'll fix it later.
We've said that so many times on the show.
It's doable, It's it's good.
But it isn't the same. It is not the same.
Still don't want to give up the organic
right.
real reality of it, but you have a lot of tools to enhance the performance. Let's put it that way.
Right.
So I had a question about the Nashville recordings that John referenced, and then this Work at Home album 2020 we just referenced. There's something called Woodstock mixes of Still the One and Dance with Me. So could you describe what those two records are? Because there's some overlap in terms of tracks, and I don't know what's a remix, what's a re-record. Are they all re-records?
And I don't even know what you're talking about.
Oh,
honestly,
really?
What
hold on. Let me see if I can.
There we go. What does that say?
I can't work at home. I think that's somebody work at home. So this is some third party who put together a playlist of stuff from various records and called it Work at Home.
It's listed in your discography on Spotify.
It is.
Well, it's a Spotify thing. It's not an actual album or a product. It's a Spotify playlist that somebody authorized.
Yeah, they've got it listed as an album, even though, like you say, it isn't.
Well,
interesting.
Management has done a good job of stamping out unauthorized things, but if it's there, I guess it's there for a reason.
Yeah.
But if you're going to work at home, you can listen to Orleans music while you.
There we go.
It's a pandemic thing, right?
Everyone's working at home, so why not listen to Orleans? There you go.
Right.
So
it might have been management is also our label, so they might have put that together.
Okay.
Interesting. All right. Well, there's fun facts, and then there's unfun facts, I guess.
Yeah,
mystery.
Mysteries wrapped in enigmas.
That's right. Cool. Awesome. So, well, you've got this, like we said, we want to help the folks in Hallandale at Gulfstream Park promote the show. So you need to get out and see Orleans. You said, are you headlining and you're the only act, or is there an opening act on Thursday, July 20th?
It's like a 2:45s with an intermission kind of show. It's an evening with, and I think we've played this venue before, if I'm not mistaken, but I'll have to see it when I get there. They all blend together.
Right. Well, that's July 21st. So if you're listening to this before July 21st, still time to get tickets. And then I'm looking at all these dates. You got 2 more coming up in Florida. You've got, go ahead.
Jacksonville the next night on the 22nd at the Florida Theater, also with Pure Prairie League and Firefall, and then over to Clearwater, Ruth Eckerd Hall the next night, same act, Same 3 acts.
Excellent.
Do you anticipate you're going to stay as active on the road, maybe into next year? Or is this just because we're out of COVID now and we can do it?
Well, things are still spotty, it's still like touch and go. Promoters are freaking out because of the economy and people only have so many dollars and what are they going to spend them on? And
Right.
the more they get sucked up for food and gas and housing, tickets like go down the list. So it's still very kind of precarious for everybody out there. Travel is absolutely no fun. It is just a nightmare. You don't even know if you're going to get where you're supposed to go. And we take that chance every time we leave the house. So those are some of the detractors. And this year we may if we do 24 dates, that's probably about right. Normally we do, 36 or 4, maybe 40 would be a good goal. And we might get there again, but it's still, still ramping up. I'm 18 months away from 70 and
No way.
And cashing in my Social Security and such. So,
Wow.
So we're going at least that far into the spring of 2024. Maybe if we take a swan song on a cruise, that wouldn't be a bad idea. But no, we have no intention of stopping, but everybody's getting older. Health concerns are real.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not easier to travel, it's harder. So we'll do this as long as anybody wants to hear it and as long as we're capable. I'm having had to replace guys over and over again, over the decades. I'm not really looking forward to replacing anybody again, ever.
Yeah.
Because you lose institutional memory.
Right.
It's one thing to have 4 guys who've been together for 40 years. Another thing to have a band that's 40 years old but not the same, So, so we have to keep reinventing ourselves.
Absolutely. Well, I guess all the more reason why people need to get out and see you this summer, this fall, next spring. Who knows when the Swan song will be?
When we do a show, I often ask, pretty much after the first, second song, okay, who's never seen a show before, Orleans show? And the hands go up and go, well, it's a good thing you didn't wait much longer.
Well, that's all the impetus I need. I know where I'm going to be October 15th, and I am going to see Orleans Firefall.
You going to St. Louis? All right.
Yeah. Peter Beckett, Walter Egan, John Ford Coley. It's like a dream come true. How do we get Ambrosia on the bill so I can just get it? Kick all my bucket list.
All your favorites.
Yeah, we used to do a lot of shows with them. We haven't done any recently, but that's always a good time as well.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, this has been awesome. I'm going to ask if you have a few more minutes, though. We're going to do something a little unorthodox, Lance. And at the end of every podcast, John and I do something called the lightning round, and I'll explain that in a minute. We typically let the guests go before we do our lightning round, and there's 3 things that we kick off quickly. It's called Float Your Boat, and we ask each other if a certain song, whether or not we think it sounds like yacht rock or not, right? And we'll interview your cat coming on screen now,
Miles.
too.
Miles making himself known.
Nice.
Miles. The second thing is we talk about a buried treasure, maybe a song that either was a hit, but we totally forgot about, or something that's been buried to the point where no one knows it. We got to bring it out. And then the last thing is we go off the map, which is something that maybe isn't yacht rock, but we still want to talk about it and would still fit nice into a playlist with yacht rock. So you'd be the first guest that ever joined us for the lightning round. Are you up for it? It's not a quiz. I'm just going to ask you a question about 3 songs.
Okay.
You already know the answer to. All right. Don, you ready to go?
Yeah. Am I doing mine too? Or are we going to just blaze through yours since they're all Orleans related?
Mine are all Orleans related, and I have a question for Lance on every single one.
All right, let's do those, and then we can tie mine on the end after the fact.
I should know the answers to those.
Oh, you'll know
we'll
the
see.
answers. Well, we'll see. Yeah.
Yeah.
So along the way, I discovered what I thought was the quote unquote yachtiest Orleans song, because you're right. The hits don't sound like the rest of the catalog in my mind. But there's a song that features sax pretty heavily. And that is a song that, John, do you agree that this might be the yachtiest Orleans tune? And that's Spring Fever.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So what I wanted to ask you about Spring Fever is, do you recall how Michael Brecker got brought in as the saxophonist?
Right. So we were recording in LA. Michael was in New York. Consented to come do the session. Took a flight from New York, came, did the session, took a red eye back to New York. I mean, the guy was like, work. And he just played, track after track, just laying it down. And he said he was inspired to play as if he were a slide guitar.
Oh,
So if you
wow.
hear some of those those kind of things, that was what he was emulating. And we took his tracks and did a little, flip back and forth to create the solo and then the fills that we hand selected from it. But he was a trooper,
Wow.
came in and knocked it out, and then back to New York.
Was the song conceived with sax in mind, or was that something later on we said, what would go here is some good sax? Who do we get?
That I can't. I don't know that Larry had that in mind. That's another of Larry's songs. But it seemed like an obvious thing to do, right? In retrospect.
Yeah, it sounds great. All right, John, Buried Treasure. I don't remember if you introduced me. I think you found this and introduced it to me.
Right.
But Lance, are you familiar with the Earl Klugh cover of Dance With Me?
I've heard it.
Okay.
I'm not like intimately familiar, but I've heard it. Yes.
Well, I was going to ask you if you bothered to learn the bass line that Louis Johnson threw down.
Are you kidding me? I have enough trouble playing my own stuff.
Well, now you have a homework assignment.
I think everybody says that. Did you learn Louis Johnson's bass line? You could stop right there. No, you kidding me?
Yeah,
right. Did you learn Jocko's stuff on Joni?
Right. No. Exactly. Hilarious.
All right, last one. We're going to move into Off the Map. I've noticed that, and of course, I might have my facts wrong based on what Spotify is putting on there, but I believe on multiple occasions, I know at least once, you've covered Dancing in the Moonlight, which I love your version of Dancing in the Moonlight.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming, I always wondered why they picked this song. And then I realized there's this connection with, I'm assuming the reason you did that was because of the connection with Wells Kelly, or no, was there another reason?
Before there was Orleans, there was a band out of Ithaca, New York, Larry's band called Boffalongo, that went through several changes. And at one point, second album, they picked up Sherman Kelly, who was the author of that song, the older brother of Wells Kelly.
Oh.
And so Boffalongo had the very first cut on that on a United Artists album in 1969. That band continued to change roster, and Wells was then included. So was Larry, Sherman, Wells, Bob Lineback, who's been in our band, and the John Hall Band, and a bass player, Milton J. So that was the final version of that band. And when Wells quit, it just put the last nail in the coffin. Wells quit to join John Hall in Woodstock, and then that blew up Boffalongo. And then they invited Larry to come down. That's how Orleans began. So from the very get-go, Orleans fledgling was playing Dancing in the Moonlight because it carried over from the Boffalongo days. And then we played it as a quartet every gig until King Harvest, who was the other thing that came out of the demise of Boffalongo. Half the band went to there, Sherman, some other Boff alumni, and they cut King Harvest and had the hit on it in '73, at which point we stopped playing it, because you don't play, if you're trying to be your own thing, you don't play cover songs on the radio, right? So we let it go for all those years, and then in 2005 finally came back and recorded our own version that you've mentioned. But yeah, it goes back, the whole thing goes back to Wells and Larry and Sherman prior to Orleans.
And there you go.
We love that version. Definitely.
Yep. And we end the show on another fun fact.
Loaded with them.
Yeah, loaded with fun facts. So that was cool. All right. Well, I appreciate you joining us for the lightning round. It's a maiden voyage for the guest to be on the lightning round.
Cool.
Will you be playing that? Do you guys play that song live?
Absolutely. Every time,
Awesome.
We got to play the 3 hits and that, and then figure out what else we can fit in, whether it's 45 minutes or 90 minutes or whatever.
Right. Okay.
We'll play all the, the hits, the fan favorites, and then some stuff people don't know, constantly turning things over.
Well, I spent about a week going through your entire catalog, some of which I wasn't familiar with. And that's when I realized it's got to be a great show, because there's so much great like R&B sort of jam band stuff mixed in with what I thought Orleans was mostly. It's got to be a great live show.
Yeah. And again, some versions of the band were hotter than others in terms of being able to improvise and go. Like we don't do Compared to What anymore, or things like that, which were they blazed in their day. We're more, I'm a song guy mostly. John always wanted to be the jam guy. I'm more about song structure and very specifics. Or this part, and not just okay, whatever. So
Yep.
so that's what I see.
Well, knock 'em dead this summer and into the fall and into the spring before you decide to start collecting that Social Security. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's not going to make me rich, but it's
Right.
it's a mile marker, 70. I have to start thinking a little differently.
Good. Well, again, thank you for being on the show, and thank you to Kim Riley at Seaside Music Management for hooking it up. And everyone, check out the Miami show or wherever you are. Go see Orleans. Thanks, Lance.
Guys.